Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from No-Driver 7034. AITA for forcing my formerly straight lesbian girlfriend to stop being friend with her male best friend? Me, mask female, and my girlfriend are in a lesbian relationship. We usually get along quite well even with opposing viewpoints when it comes to most things. We usually just compromise and just go along with each other's wants. The problems only start when I started to get suspicious of her BBF since they keep acting sweet with each other. Her BBF even saying that he'd give her anything to make her happy and that was what his goal was. I got jealous since I was the jealous type. She was also straight before we got into a relationship and had a boyfriend who hurt her, so she switched to girls. I talked to her about my concerns that I feel like she's a tad bit cheating on me since she just goes along with his supposed BBF, knowing full well that he's in love with her. She just dismisses this and just tells me she doesn't want to cut ties, or even just minimize her actions with him since he's her childhood friend for 3 years at the time and she felt like he's the only true friend she ever had. I just gave up trying to convince her and felt bad for wanting her to cut ties with her BBF, so I just requested her to at least stop mentioning him since I got tired of listening to all of her praise and compliments for him, even stating that he's better than me. The next day of our talk, we met at our usual spot with her all smiley. I got happy for her and asked her what happened that got her so smiley. She just replied with, "Nothing, my BBF just told me something that I really liked." Me, getting jealous, just tried my best to stay calm and just be happy for her and just stayed silent. She noticed this and asked me why, so I reluctantly reminded of my request to her. She just smiled and teased me even more, mentioning him and praising him to the point where she spent the entire day of our date just talking about him. I got sad and disappointed and just stayed quiet, thinking that I shouldn't share my concerns with her since she'd just the opposite. Before our date ended, I brought her back to her home and tried to hug her goodbye, but she dodged me and said, "I'd like a hug from my BBF, not you." I just stayed silent and tried to leave, but she just pulled me in her arms, saying it was just a joke, so I nodded and gave her a smile and left. Few weeks have passed and she still teases me like that, and I eventually got tired. One night, I didn't reply to her, just looking at her messages, knowing that she's able to know when I've seen her texts on not. She got angry and mentioning that I've changed since it was the first time I was acting like that and texted, "Let's just break up, you don't love me anymore." I just look at her message, hurt. She just unsent it 2 seconds later, maybe regretting her sudden outburst and demanded that I at least reply. I just replied with, "Fine, let's break up, it's already been 8 months already, I think that's long enough," leaving her shocked since I usually act quite the opposite. She then just asked me to stay friends with her despite the breakup. Thought of a plan and agreed. Despite the breakup, we still hung out, but with me being less engaged with her and stopped smiling when we were together, which was very new to her, so she tried to just dismiss it. The next day, I kept making excuses that I was busy and couldn't hang out with her, but I just spent more time with a close friend. Girl, qualification of her role will be stated at the bottom. Her classmate saw us and told her, knowing that me and her broke up, and joked with her that I found another after just 3 days of our breakup. She texted me later that day that she didn't like that I spent time with her and asked me why I didn't spend time with her instead, making an excuse of being busy. I just replied with, "You're not my priority anymore, and why don't you want me spending time with her anyways?" And she admitted that she was jealous. I just replied, "Fine, if it bothers you that much, I'll cut ties with her." The next day came and we agreed to hang out again. I didn't go and just told her classmate to tell her I want to cancel and hung out with my friend instead. She got upset and begged me the next day to get back with her, admitting that it feels horrible to feel jealous and telling the other about it and the other just doing the complete opposite. She also told me that she cut all ties with her BBF and any others I might get jealous of. I felt pity for her and agreed since I did all that to get revenge and prove my point. A month has passed and our relationship was going smoothly like before, but she still mentions him every time. The only difference is that instead of praising him, she tells me that he was her only friend and that she lost him forever because of this. Now I still feel guilty for doing what I did and feel like I had taken things too far. So, AITA. The friend I used to make her jealous was a close friend of ours. We had a trio that was close. The only reason our friendship ended was because my girlfriend got jealous of her because of an incident. Our friend and I was sitting beside each other, keeping a safe distance of course, and was stalking her crush on Facebook. Apparently, some stranger she didn't know told her that I replaced her with my friend. She told me about this and apologized to her and kept a distance with our friend. This caused a conflict since our friend felt left out and left our friend group. She didn't feel mad at me though since she know it was my GF who made me avoid her. She got mad at my GF since she'd rather believe a stranger than us. OP is an AH, manipulating feelings, intentionally making her girlfriend jealous, and forcing her to cut ties with her BBF to prove a point is unhealthy behavior. It lacks respect for her autonomy and causes unnecessary emotional harm. So, I would rate OP 2.5, and OP's girlfriend 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Big Girl 367. AITA for supporting my nephew after he taught his golden child brother a lesson he will never forget? Context. I am 31M, and my brother is 40, and he have 2 sons, Jack, 16, and James, 13. Jack was born when my brother was still in college. He didn't want a child at that time. He and his girlfriend struggled for a while, managing their studies and raising a child. Thankfully, our parents were supportive and helped him. I also helped in any way I could. Eventually, he finished his studies, landed a job at 27, and got married to his girlfriend. Then their second child, James, was born. Both of them spoiled him a lot. Whenever our parents or I said anything, they claimed James was their planned child and, since they were in a good position, James deserved it. At the same time, they neglected Jack. They gave James expensive gifts, toys, clothes, snacks, and everything. The saddest part is that Jack never once complained. I watched that kid be happy just because his brother was happy opening his gifts. James, on the other hand, was spoiled rotten. He constantly compared his things to Jack's, and if Jack ever got something good from someone, he wanted it too. This problem kept growing. The negligence towards Jack worsened, and James started taking advantage of it. He began getting Jack grounded for things he did, and their parents always believed James no matter what. Over the years, I saw the sparkle in Jack's eyes fade. Now, the incident happened this Christmas. To be clear, I love both of my nephews. I don't approve of James's behavior, but I blame the parents, not the kid. So, for Christmas, I bought both of them a Nintendo Switch. Jack had wanted one for years, and he almost cried when he got it. He hugged me and thanked me. But James hated it, saying, "I wanted a PS5, not this," and threw it away. I didn't care because I did my part. Whatever he did with his gift was none of my concern. I was not going to enable this kid like his parents did. A few days after Christmas, Jack came knocking on my door. The kid was crying and shaking. I let him in, calmed him down, and asked him what happened. To keep it short, after I gave them both a Nintendo Switch, Jack was too happy with it. He played The Legend of Zelda whenever he had time, and he was having so much fun. That didn't sit well with James. To ruin Jack's fun, James broke his own console and cried to their mom, claiming that Jack broke it. Their mom believed him, snatched Jack's console, gave it to James, and grounded Jack. Jack just lost it this time. Years of unfair treatment finally got to him. He grabbed James by the neck and started choking him. He said he didn't know what came over him, but his mom's screaming and beating couldn't stop him. He just saw red. He started screaming at James, demanding him to tell the truth. James was struggling and begging Jack to release him, and finally, James admitted the truth. Jack let go. James was left gasping for air, and Jack ran away, straight to my apartment. After a while, I received a phone call from my brother, asking me to send Jack home because he had a lot to answer for. Jack wanted to return home to face the consequences alone, but I went with him. When we arrived, I saw James visibly terrified of Jack. He had never faced consequences for his actions before, and it looked like Jack's anger had truly scared him. My brother started screaming at Jack, but I stopped him. I asked James, in front of everyone, why he did what he did. He didn't say anything at first, but when I pushed, he finally admitted, Jack was having too much fun, and it irritated him. That kid was so spoiled that someone else's happiness bothered him. His mom started to defend him, saying, "He's just a kid," and blah blah. I stopped her and sent Jack outside to sit in my car. Then I let my brother have it. I told him everything. How he had failed as a father, how he had neglected Jack, how he had spoiled James to the point of making him a terrible human being. My brother just listened. He didn't say a word. His wife tried to say something again, but this time, he shut her up. It looked like reality had finally hit him. He finally realized his younger son was becoming a terrible person. I told him that if they hated Jack so much, I could take him in. Then I left and took Jack back to my apartment. Now, Jack is here with me. His mother has been blowing up my phone, saying I was cruel to James and that I shouldn't meddle in their family affairs. She accused me of favoritism toward Jack. I didn't reply to her. I haven't heard anything from my brother yet. Maybe he's still processing his mistakes. For now, Jack is with me, playing games, studying. He's such a great kid. And if his parents don't want him back, I plan to support him until he graduates and gets on his feet. AITA for taking Jack's side? OP is not an AH. She is just supporting Jack after years of neglect and stood up against her brother and his wife. Jack needed someone to defend him, and OP provided a safe space, holding everyone accountable for their actions. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate OP 0, and her brother's wife 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from such analyst 4132. AITA for not allowing my son to go to his paternal grandparents' anniversary barbecue because his father's stepchildren will be there? I, 33F, have a 7-year-old son with my ex, 35M. Almost a year ago I was given full custody of our son, and my ex was awarded supervised visitation. The reason for this was the abuse our son was suffering at the hands of his father's stepchildren, 12 and 13. This was a very difficult battle to win. It started 3 years ago when my son came home from his father's house and my ex announced he'd gotten remarried over the weekend and he wanted me to pay half toward the clothes he bought our son for the wedding because they got ruined. Of course, I didn't pay half, but I did ask why he expected me to pay and why the clothes were ruined. He said he felt like we should split the cost of big items like that. Then he refused to answer how they got ruined. Later that evening when I was bathing my son, I noticed some bruises on him and it made me suspicious. He mentioned his arms hurt and that the big kids had done it. A few weeks later my ex called me and asked me to come and calm our son down. He said our son was hysterical and he had been unable to calm him. When I got to his house our son was still crying and wanted to come home with me. My ex's wife said one of her kids had accidentally stepped in my son's foot and my son got scared. But I could hear one of her kids in the background calling my son names and saying they wanted to shut him up. Over time things got worse. There were more bruises and more days where my son would get very upset at his dad's house. I spoke to my ex who said his stepkids were taking it bad that their mom had remarried and that they had lost their dad only 4 years prior and it was difficult for them. He said he and our son weren't their favorite people. But he said it wasn't a big deal. I decided to document these incidents and injuries anyway because it appeared to me my ex was not concerned and our son could be at risk in his home. As my son got bigger, he'd verbalize more and more about what was going on. The stepkids treated him like shit and were not embarrassed or ashamed to be rough with him. He'd get pushed and grabbed and a lot of these accidents were happening. I put in a few calls to CPS and they started to offer resources. It pissed off my ex, but I was worried for my son. The verbal incidents weren't on CPS's radar really, but the physical stuff they also documented, and some of my ex's family had witnessed things, and a few even sent me rundowns about what happened. The incident that brought us to me getting full custody was my ex and his wife leaving the 3 kids home alone for hours together, and the stepkids dragged my son out of the house and locked him in the garage on his own where all the dangerous tools were held. My ex tried to fight for his right to retain custody, but CPS and the judge agreed it was not safe for our son. The reason he only gets supervised visits is his stepkids are not allowed around my son. My ex's parents are celebrating their wedding anniversary next month, and they want my son there. But my ex and his family are invited and will be attending. I told them I could let them do something with him another time, but if the stepkids are there my son won't be. They, along with my ex's oldest brother, feel like I'm being unfair and too strict and not trusting them to keep my son safe. But he wasn't in the past. I know that for a fact. AITA. OP is not an AH. She's prioritizing her son's safety after documented abuse by her ex's stepchildren. Given the past incidents and the current supervised visitation arrangement, it's reasonable to refuse the invitation if the stepchildren will be present. OP's ex and his family are AHs. As for scores, I would rate 2.5, and OP gets a 0 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from total-feed-255. AITA for impulsively locking my boyfriend out without any more talk after he tries to move in. My 39F boyfriend Mike, 38M, of 3.5 years, and I have been trying to work in an LD relationship. This is my last semester dealing with the first phase of a startup that took blood, sweat, and tears to bootstrap. The next phases will not be as hard or difficult, and what's most important is that I have secured a few long-term contracts and the funds. I temporarily moved out of state for this. When I met Mike, we became inseparable. Neither of us is original from where I met him. I developed my career in that state. I'm very dedicated to my family and my career and resisted dating, but he was charming and funny, and I became very attached. I wasn't thinking about finding a partner, but our chemistry changed my mind. We hit a snag almost 2 years ago because Mike became anxious about my career, and it's partially my fault. I was so happy that I was making progress that I impulsively promised him a scooter bike when my finances allowed it. It was supposed to be a birthday present. He took me up on my word, which is fine, but 1. It was supposed to be when I could, and 2. He started out with enthusiasm but ended up pressuring me to the point where I felt that he was with me for the freebie and I ended up snapping. He apologized and stopped and only mentioned it as a joke every so often. I have been taking some long-distance clients when my schedule allows it. I charge an accommodation rate, he knows this, and I work my best to save some of that money. This is how I've been able to stay afloat and sleep at night knowing that I have money in the bank aside for my regular revenue. This is important. I was awarded a grant that I would have preferred to keep private, but they announced it on their social media, and I had people congratulating me on my profile, and Mike saw it. I had to explain that grants are not piggy bank money, but a means to support my work. I left for my present location 8 months ago. It's the last big push for the project, and my team and I are both exhausted and excited. My parents noticed that I'm tired all the time and offered to take my kids for this school semester. I'm grateful for this because what I'm doing is to build a future, and childcare isn't easy or cheap. So, I travel and do video calls every day. Mike and I managed to keep the relationship as he drove to see me every few weeks. 3 weeks ago, Mike showed up by surprise. I was thrilled. We focused on making memories as he said he would stay for 3 days. Then he pushed his leaving date. Don't get me wrong, I care about him, but it didn't make sense. I asked if he lost his job, and he denied it. He was new at his job, so no vacations were accumulated. After 10 days I was very worried and he said he was looking for a job in my area. I was confused, and he acted like it was normal because we love each other. I asked him to give us both time to think about this thoroughly. He said okay but didn't move out, and I had to come home to him lounging around all day. He didn't contribute with groceries and got defensive when I asked what he had in mind about rent. I needed time to process. I can't just add a new tenant without telling the administrator, and he hadn't shared anything about any job prospects. After a long and uncomfortable conversation, I said that living on my earnings alone should not be his plan. He had a sour reaction and brought up how I pocket my money in savings every time that I visit out-of-town clients. He said that I was a hypocrite. He also brought up my promise for the scooter and said that I offered as a way to control and bring him closer. We didn't speak for about 2 days until I asked him to leave, and he didn't. He says that I gave up on us too easily and suggested that there may be something else going on, like maybe I'm cheating. At this point, my ability to keep a clear mind has been affected, and I came here to work hard and do the best that I can to move back. So, I asked him to leave again because I didn't even have a clear picture of how he plans to support himself financially. He just laid down with his arm covering his face like I was nagging at him. This is where I might be the asshole. We hadn't formally broken up, but after another fight, I ended up leaving my own place to cool off. I impulsively bought a new lock and had it installed when Mike went for breakfast. I put his bags in the lobby and refused to answer the door when he came back. He said that his key wasn't working, so I told him why and advised about his bags. He tried to talk to me, but I blocked him. I'm already looking for a new place and I'll move if I find one because I don't want him showing up again. I feel a mix of anger and guilt because it ended badly after we had a lovely connection. His last message said that I weaponized my degree for leverage and that I humiliated him. AITA. OP is not an AH. She set clear boundaries, and Mike disrespected her. Her impulsive decision to lock him out was extreme but understandable given his lack of contribution and disregard for her personal space and needs. She did nothing wrong. As for scores, I would rate OP 0, and her boyfriend, Mike 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Teen Fin 1. AITA for telling my deadbeat dad I don't care about him or his family in front of his kids. My dad abandoned me when I, 16M, was 2. I don't remember him being my dad or as a person really. But I remember what it was like without him and how crappy life was when he was dodging child support. The only reason he started paying it was because his license got suspended and he was screwed without that. I think I was 7 when we started getting that money and he had to pay the backdated stuff too. When I was 10, I had to go for a DNA test because he questioned whether I was really his or not. At the time we had no idea why, just that I had to go for the test. Found out after it was because he'd gotten married and had a couple of kids and he wanted to focus his resources on them and not on me. He tried to get the child support reduced and even tried to stop paying again, but the consequences would have been way more harsh if he continued, so he started paying again. 2 years ago, he moved back here with his family. He ignored me and I ignored him. His wife approached me and my mom a couple of times, but she wasn't someone either of us wanted to talk to, so we didn't. I saw him with his kids a few times. Mostly when I was walking by the elementary school or if I went to the mall with friends. He's playing the role of good dad to them right now, or that's how it looked anyway. Does it bother me? Kinda. Like, I think it's shitty that he moved back here instead of staying the fuck away when he abandoned me over and over again. I'm in therapy and I know I don't ever want a relationship with him or any of his family, and that includes his kids. That's something therapy has helped me fully realize and work on. I won't be a dick to his kids if they approach me, but I'm not going to give a relationship any chance. I'm an only child in my heart, and that's not about to change unless my mom had more kids. The current thing is something I don't have all the details on. But his kids found out I'm also his kid. They wanted to know me. He tried to downplay it as he just found out and he wasn't sure if I'd be in their family, but they keep talking about it. His ILs are coming into town in a couple of weeks and him and his wife know the kids will mention me. His ILs won't like the fact he abandoned his kid, and he used a different word, but he abandoned me, so I'll use that. And he wanted me to come to dinner at his house and act like we all just found out. He said he can deal with what the kids want after, but he doesn't want the ILs to know. He came up to me in the mall to ask me to do that, and I told him no and I started to walk away. He had his kids with him. I need to mention that. I didn't interact with them, and I hardly interacted with him. Like I said, I was walking away, and then he told me I owed him that much and he was paying for me, which is more than most dads like him do. He said I could do him and his family this one thing. I told him I don't care about him or his family, and I told him to leave me the fuck alone like he has for the last 14 years. Then I moved faster so he couldn't keep saying shit to annoy me. When his wife found out about it, she went to my mom at work. My mom works in a popular store in town, and she'd seen his wife in there a lot. His wife told my mom she needed to teach me to react better in front of kids, and I didn't need to be cruel. My mom was pissed about the encounter and told me I did nothing wrong. But I guess I do feel kind of bad for saying it to the kids. Not that I want to seek them out and apologize or anything, because I don't want to engage at all. But AITA OP is not an AH. He's justified in his feelings due to his dad's abandonment and mistreatment. He set clear boundaries and didn't want to pretend for the sake of his dad's image, which is a valid choice. So, I would rate OP 0 out of 5, and OP's father 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the last story from Odd Molasses 5855. AITA for not wanting to follow my mom's rules if I'm paying half the rent. My mom and I, 23F, are potentially getting an apartment together, and each paying half the rent, and she said there will still be the same rules applied as when I was still living at home with her. So for background information, my parents growing up weren't super strict, but are a little more traditional, so they had certain rules with me that I, of course, didn't like, and they still applied even once I turned 18, had to be home a certain time, no tattoos, no sleepovers with my boyfriend at the time, and I couldn't go on any trips that the rest of my friend group went on, all girls. However, I understand that it's their house, their rules, so of course the solution was me moving out. Which I did. When I turned 21, I moved out with roommates and have been living there for the past 2 years. I'm in place financially now where I can afford an apartment of my own, and just graduated college last month, so I've been looking for apartments. At the same time, my parents decided to split a few months ago and are currently working on finalizing the divorce and selling the house. I'm the only one of my siblings who lives in the same state, and my mom knew about my plans to get an apartment, and asked if I'd wanted to look for one together and split the rent. She was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and now that her and my dad are done, she's working a regular job, so has been a little tight on money. This actually didn't seem like a bad idea to me, so I said yes. But now, we had a conversation yesterday, and I told her about my tattoo appointment coming up, which she said to enjoy now because once we're under the same roof again, your lifestyle is going to have to change. I was confused at first, and that's when she mentioned that I'll have to pretty much follow the same rules that I did as when I was living with her and my dad. This made me very upset, and I told her that if we're going to be getting an apartment where I'm paying half the bills, I'm not following her rules. Now she's saying I'm disrespectful and rude and disappointed in me, and upset that I no longer want to get an apartment. As someone who's 23, I go out with friends at night when I'm off the next day, been traveling within the country every other month, and just enjoying my 20s. I even have a trip to Cancun this summer for my birthday, and now apparently I'd have to cancel that. I won't be doing anything that she doesn't agree or would make her uncomfortable inside the apartment, but outside of our living space I don't see the problem. But I don't want to damage the relationship with my mom, so am I just being unreasonable? OP is not an AH. As an adult paying half the rent, it's reasonable to expect autonomy and not be bound by childhood rules. OP is setting boundaries and seeking independence, which is understandable and necessary for personal growth. So, I would rate OP 0 out of 5, and OP's mother 2.5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.